Are you 40 years old or older and thinking about the trades? Watch this first. Let me ask you something. I really want you to think about it for a minute. How many more years are you going to keep doing something that drains your soul? How many more Monday mornings do you want to keep waking up, already dreading the day before your feet even hit the floor? If you're watching this, I'll bet something inside of you is pulling you toward that door. It's the realization that the safe path you were promised has turned into a cage. You're 40, maybe 45, and you feel the clock ticking, while you sit behind at a desk or stand at a retail floor. Are you okay with staying exactly where you are for another 20 years? Think about that. So I'm going to be straight with you about making a move now. I don't want to give you a top 10 list or some hyped up speech. I'm just going to tell you the straight up truth about what it actually looks like to start over. You know, we're not kids anymore. Most people, maybe even people in your own house, will tell you that you've missed the boat. Which would be a terrible thing to say. They'll tell you your back can't take it or that you can't compete with a 20-year-old. Well, you know what? They're wrong, but they aren't wrong for the reasons you think. Right now, the trades are the best kept secret in America. And if you're sleeping on this, you're leaving serious money on the table. I'm John, and I've spent about 30 years in the trades. I've been a journeyman carpenter, pipe fitter, plumbing technician, and a home inspector. I've performed over 2,000 property inspections, and I've seen the guts of every kind of building you can imagine. I also ran my own construction company. I got there by working hard and also making a lot of mistakes along the way, some expensive ones. But I always stuck around long enough to learn from the wreckage. And I'm not here to sell you a dream, I'm here to give you a blueprint. So I have this story about a guy named Dave. Dave was 44 and he spent his whole career in a warehouse as a supervisor. He was a solid guy. He was reliable as a clock, but he was capped out. There was just nowhere for him to go. And he decided to walk away from that job and start an apprenticeship in HVAC. I remember seeing him on a job site during the first month. He looked like he'd been hit by a truck. He was working alongside kids who were 19 and 20 years old. And these kids had a fast work pace that didn't quit. And they could go hard all day, eat a burger for lunch, and do it again the next day without feeling a thing. They were nimble, quick, and they didn't have a mortgage or kids to worry about. I know Dave at times felt like a turtle. He was slow and he felt like he was failing. And he didn't know the names of even half the tools in the bag yet. He spent the first week fumbling with the manifold gauge set and tripping over an extension cord. And by the end of his first month, he was sitting in his truck at lunch thinking he made the biggest mistake of his life. But then things shifted. The company took on a massive commercial project, and it was total chaos for a while. The younger guys would lose parts, leave their tools laying around. They were showing up 10 minutes late because they stayed out too late the night before. They'd get to the roof and realize they forgot their tool at the bottom of the ladder. And Dave didn't have the speed yet, but he had the supervisor brain. He ended up organizing the trucks so they weren't digging for hours. He learned how to stage material so no one had to walk back and forth 20 times. And he was the one who kept his cool when a piece of equipment didn't fit the way the print said it would. And the owner noticed this, and he didn't need Dave to be the fastest guy with the wrench, but he needed someone who could manage a job site. And by the end of his first year, Dave wasn't just a helper, he was the stabilizer for the whole crew. The truth about the physical side, this is definitely physical work, but starting at 40 doesn't mean you're signing up to be broken. It just means you have to be smarter about how you treat your body than a 20-year-old does. Because when you're young, you think you're invincible. You jump off tailgates and lift with your back because you can get away with it. But at 40, you know better. This is about maintenance. If you take care of yourself and if you use the right lifting techniques, wear the knee pads and stay hydrated, your body will show up for you. I've seen guys in their 60s who are more mobile than apprentices because they actually respected their body and took care of themselves. When I was in the carpenters union, I noticed something very quickly. There was a clear difference in how the older guys were treated. The young guys were the mules. They did the repetitive heavy lifting because they didn't know any better. And it was also a rite of passage. But the older guys, I remember we'd put the older guy on the chop saw. And think about why. Yeah, he's got the experience to make the right cuts, but it's also practical. It's easier to stand there in one spot making cuts than it is to be the guy running the material. The younger guys have the lungs and the legs to chase the work, but the older guy has the steady hand. While the young guy is huffing and puffing, carrying 10-foot boards across the site, the guy in the saw is keeping his heart rate down and his brain focused, and making sure that when the board gets to the wall, it fits. And if he's accurate, the job moves. If he's sloppy, the whole crew slows down. When you're 40, you don't don't go into a trade to be the mule for the next 20 years. You go in to learn the skill as fast as possible so you can move into a role where you're using your head while the younger guys use their backs. Roughly 40% of all skilled tradespeople in this country are over the age of 55. Nearly half the people who know how to keep our lights on and our water running are about to retire. And because for the last 30 years, every kid was told they had to go to college, including myself, or there'd be a failure. And that's a massive gap. In a gap that big, the price of your labor goes up. You aren't competing for a job. You are entering a market where you are the prize. And you have to be realistic. Your first year will be an investment. You might even take a pay cut. I've seen guys go from $70K a year in an office down to $45K as a first-year apprentice. That's almost a 50% drop in your lifestyle for a year or two. But look at the big picture. In an office, your raises are usually 5% a year if you're lucky. And then you're waiting for someone above you to die or retire so you can move up an inch. While in the trades, your raises are tied to your skills. You become a journeyman, you get a massive bump in pay. And by a year, the guy who took the pay cut is usually making more than he was at his old job. And he has a skill that no software can ever replace. And I made a lot of mistakes that cost me thousands of dollars because I was moving too fast. I thought I had to prove I knew everything because I was the older guy. And if you start at 40, your ego will be your biggest enemy. You'll want to show the young guys you can still outwork them, but don't do that. You'll just blow out a shoulder or a knee. Instead, you've got to outthink them. Be the guy who's consistently a good worker, the one that shows up early. That doesn't mean being the fastest. It means being on time, showing up every single day with a good attitude. You'd be shocked at how many people fail in the trades just because they can't manage their alarm clock or their temper. If you're the guy who's standing there ready to work when the sun comes up, you're already indispensable. You want to be the person who has the truck organized and the one who reads the manual before the job starts. I've watched people fail because they couldn't handle being told what to do by a 25-year-old foreman. We'll get over it. That 25-year-old has 7 years of experience possibly. Respect the experience and not the age. When you enter the trades at 40, you likely already have a network of people who own homes, run businesses, and need work done. A 20-year-old apprentice doesn't know anyone who needs a kitchen remodel. You most likely do. And within a few years, as you gain your licenses, your previous life becomes your biggest lead generator. And you're no longer just a worker, you're a business in waiting. That's how you go from being an employee to an owner, and that's where the real money actually lives. So is it too late if you're 40 and above? You likely have at least 25 years of work left in you. That is a quarter of a century. Do you want to spend the next 9,000 days wondering what if? Do you want to stay in that cubicle watching the clock and feeling like your potential is rotting away while you make someone else rich? Because here's the simple hard truth. If you don't make a choice today, you're already chosen to stay exactly where you are. You've chosen the Monday morning dread. You've chosen the path that leads to regret. When you become 65 and you're looking back, believe me, you won't be thinking about that pay cut you took at 40. You'll be thinking about the man you could have become if you just had the guts to pick up the tools. So the choice isn't about the trade. The choice is about whether you're going to keep watching your life happen to you or if you're finally going to start building it. And you need to pick one because the clock is running. If you're ready to stop wondering and start moving, hit the like button, subscribe to Straight Talk Construction Careers. No hype, no corporate fluff, just the truth from someone who's been in the trenches for 30 years. I'll see you in the next one.